Money. It does not just buy food, shelter, or comfort. It buys loyalty. It buys silence. It buys freedom from fear. And in the eyes of those who study power, money is nothing less than the invisible sword that cuts through all resistance. Without it, you stand weak, exposed, at the mercy of those who have more. But with it, you become untouchable. You become dangerous. You become someone no one dares to ignore. This is not some modern-day hustle mantra. It is the cold, piercing truth you find in the writings of Niccolo Machiavelli, a man who lived in the heart of the Renaissance, surrounded by ruthless princes, treacherous allies, and endless conspiracies. Machiavelli was no dreamer. He was a survivor. He observed men not as they ought to be, but as they are, selfish, greedy, and forever hungry for power. And in his world, money was the blood that kept kingdoms alive, armies marching and rulers secure. Most people know Machiavelli for one book, The Prince, a text whispered about in royal courts, condemned by moralists, and secretly studied by anyone who wanted to rise above their station. In it, he revealed a simple, unsettling truth. Power doesn't belong to the righteous or the kind. Power belongs to the clever, the ruthless, and above all, the resourceful. And what greater resource exists than money?
But here's the twist most don't realize.
Machiavelli didn't see money as mere gold or coins stacked in vaults. For him, wealth was a weapon. A ruler without money was a ruler without soldiers, without allies, without tools to punish betrayal or reward loyalty. Without money, even the most cunning mind collapses under the weight of dependence. With money, even a mediocre leader can shape the destiny of nations. That is the brutal reality he forces us to face. Stay with me, because in this video we are not only uncovering why Machiavelli believed money must be acquired at all costs. We are diving into how this belief shaped politics for centuries after him. We will explore how wealth could shield a ruler from rebellion, how it could build loyalty stronger than love, and how it could bend even the most virtuous men to obedience. We will also reveal the dark dangers hidden behind this pursuit, the envy, the conspiracies, the downfall of those who gained wealth but lacked the wisdom to wield it. You'll discover little-known episodes from Machiavelli's own life, how he was once imprisoned, tortured, and left broken by those who had more money and more power than he did, how he clawed his way back, not with armies, but with words sharper than steel, and how his warnings still echo today in boardrooms, governments, and the lives of anyone trying to rise above obscurity.
Why should you keep watching? Because this is not just a history lesson. It's a mirror. What Machiavelli saw in Renaissance Florence is the same game you see played today. Billionaires who shape messens, politicians who use wealth to buy obedience, ordinary people crushed because they had no resources to defend themselves. The faces have changed. The weapons have not. Money still decides who stands tall and who bows down.
If you've ever wondered why the world seems to reward those who already have everything, or why principles alone never seem enough, then Machiavelli gives you the answer. He strips away illusions and shows you the machinery of power in its raw, unforgiving form. By the end of this video, you will not only understand why wealth is essential, you'll understand how dangerous it is to ignore that fact. So, welcome to Psych Algorithm. Subscribe now, because every week we break down the timeless lessons of power, strategy, and human nature. Lessons that can sharpen your mind, guard your spirit, and help you vague a world that rewards the prepared and punishes the blind. Stay until the end, because what you're about to learn might change the way you see money forever. And remember, in Machiavelli's world, and perhaps in ours, money is not an accessory. It is survival. Before we talk about the role of money in power, we first need to understand something deeper. Machiavelli's view of human nature, because without it his obsession with wealth and resources doesn't make sense. For him, human beings are not noble creatures seeking truth or justice. They are selfish, fragile, and easily swayed. He believed people are motivated by two primal forces, fear and desire. These forces are not just emotions. They are engines that drive every choice, every alliance, every betrayal. And in such a world, money becomes the key instrument to control those forces. Machiavelli watched people closely. He lived in Florence, a city filled with merchants, soldiers, nobles, and schemers. He saw how quickly loyalty shifted when money was involved, how men promised thove one day and broke oaths the next, if a greater reward appeared. He concluded that humans are not guided by loyalty or gratitude for long. Gratitude fades, promises collapse. But fear and desire endure. Fear pushes people to obey. Desire tempts them to follow. And money, more than anything else, can trigger both. Imagine a ruler who has no wealth. His soldiers grow restless because their pay is late. His allies begin to doubt him because he cannot fund their ventures. His people, already poor, see no reason to respect Recep. Very quickly he becomes weak. Fear of him disappears. Desire for his support fades. But now imagine a ruler overflowing with wealth. He can pay his soldiers double and ensure their loyalty. He can buy alliances by rewarding families with gifts, positions, or opportunities. He can invest in festivals, monuments, and spectacles, feeding the desires of the people while also reminding them of his power. Through money, he commands both fear and desire, the twin levers of human nature. Machiavelli also knew that appearances mattered. A prince with riches appears strong, even if he secretly struggles. A man with no money appears weak, even if he has courage. And appearances are often more mort than reality, because humans rarely judge with reason. They judge with their eyes. They want to see power. They want to see wealth. And when they see it, they assume strength, security, and control. This is why money is not just a resource. It is a symbol, a language everyone understands without needing explanation. But let's go deeper. Machiavelli believed that humans are rarely satisfied. Desire is endless. Give them one reward, and they will soon want another. Fear, on the other hand, is more stable. If people fear punishment, they obey more consistently. And this is where money again becomes central. It funds punishment and reward alike. With money, you can maintain armies to enforce obedience. With money, you can offer rewards that keep allies close. Without it, both fear and desire slip away from your grasp. Machiavelli had witnessed betrayals firsthand. He saw nobles who betrayed their rulers for promises of gold. He saw mercenaries who switched sides when a better-paying employer appeared. He even experienced betrayal himself when Florence turned against him after years of service. These lessons hardened his view of humanity. He realized that at the core, men serve themselves first. Their loyalty lasts only as long as it benefits them. Their love disappears when danger rises, and their obedience often has a price tag. That price is money. He also drew a sharp line between what people say and what they actually do. People love to speak of honor, morality, and loyalty. But when pressed by hunger, fear, or greed, they act differently. Machiavelli saw that truth again and again. A wealthy ruler could speak of virtue and generosity, and people would believe him, because his wealth created the appearance of virtue. A poor ruler might be genuinely noble, but no one would listen, because his poverty made him invisible. The masses judge through outcomes, not intentions, and outcomes require resources. In this framework, money becomes more than survival. It becomes the very stage on which power is performed. Fear and desire cannot be directed without it. Even religion, which claims to guide souls, often depended on wealth. Churches grew rich through offerings, and their influence spread not just through faith, but through money channeled into art, politics, and control. Machiavelli, ever the realist, noticed this. He knew that even institutions claiming purity relied on material wealth to manipulate human nature. So when Machiavelli insists that wealth must be acquired, he is not simply advising greed. He is pointing to the mechanics of control. Without wealth, you cannot shape fear. Without wealth, you cannot tax desire. And without those two forces, you cannot govern human beings as they truly are. Money, in the Machiavellian sense, is never neutral. It is never just a pile of coins in a chest or numbers on a ledger. It is power in its most practical, most flexible form. To Machiavelli, wealth is the oil that keeps the machinery of authority turning. Without it, even the cleverest ruler risks collapse. With it, even the weakest leader can command armies, sway councils, and silence rivals. He looked at money not as something you spend on comfort, but as a weapon that can be sharpened, wielded, and directed towards survival and dominance. Think of politics first. In Machiavelli's Florence, power was constantly shifting between families, foreign armies, and factions within the city. Promises meant very little. Oaths could be broken overnight. What mattered was leverage, and money was the purest form of leverage. With money, you could fund soldiers, fortify walls, and protect your city. With money, you could bribe an enemy's captain, buying his loyalty and turning the tide of battle without lifting a sword. Money gave rulers the power to dictate terms, to influence decisions, and to remain standing when others fell. It was not simply about collecting wealth, but about what wealth allowed you to do to others. The same principle extended to relationships. Allies did not stay allies forever. Friends could turn into enemies the moment fortune shifted. But money created bonds that words alone could not secure. If a ruler had the resources to reward loyalty generously, his followers would stay by his side longer. Soldiers who were paid well fought with more discipline. Advisors who were rewarded for their service continued to offer their wisdom. On the other hand, lack of money poisoned relationships quickly. Soldiers without pay deserted, or worse, sold their services to the highest bidder. Advisors abandoned the prince for wealthier patrons. In this way, Machiavelli saw money as the glue that held political and personal connections together. Without it, even love or respect eventually crumbled. And then there was the darker use of money. The ability to punish. Machiavelli did not shy away from this truth. He knew rulers had to instill fear as well as loyalty. Wealth allowed you to punish betrayal decisively. You could fund spies to uncover plots. You could pay informants to reveal enemies. You could finance mercenaries to destroy those who dared to cross you. In his eyes, power was not only about rewarding the faithful, but also about ensuring that those who defied you paid a price. Money enabled both. It made your threats credible and your punishments swift. A poor ruler could make promises and threats all day, but without wealth, no one believed him. A rich ruler, on the other hand, inspired fear simply because people knew he could act. But the power of money was not only external, it was also internal. Wealth brought security and independence, and for Machiavelli, these were essential to survival. A ruler who depended on the charity of others, or who borrowed endlessly from allies, placed himself in chains. Such dependence meant that when the moment of decision arrived, he would not be free. He would have to act in ways that pleased others, instead of ways that secured his own power. Wealth, then, was not about luxury. It was about freedom. It was the buffer that protected you from threats, from manipulation, from being cornered by stronger players. A man who held his own fortune could walk boldly, knowing he did not have to beg for aid or bow to pressure. This ties directly into one of Machiavelli's most famous ideas, virtù. Virtù did not mean virtue in the moral sense. It meant the strength, decisiveness, and cunning needed to seize opportunities and impose one's will on fortune. To practice virtù, a leader needed resources at hand. Boldness without resources was recklessness. Ambition without funding was fantasy. Machiavelli argued that fortune, the unpredictable force of life, often offered windows of opportunity, but only those who had money could seize them fully. Wealth allowed you to act quickly when fortune shifted, to mobilize troops, to fund campaigns, to buy allies, and to strike before your rivals could react. Virtue required courage. Yes, but courage without resources was wasted. Money made courage effective. Wealth also allowed leaders to take risks others could not. A poor ruler hesitated, always worried about consequences, always fearing what he could not afford to lose. A wealthy ruler could act boldly, knowing he had the means to recover if things went wrong. This freedom to act without paralyzing fear gave him a decisive edge. Machiavelli understood that hesitation often destroyed leaders, while swift, confident action secured victory. Money gave leaders the foundation for that confidence. It turned virtue from an idea into a practical reality. But Machiavelli was not naive about money. He knew that simply hoarding wealth was not enough. In fact, hoarding could backfire. A ruler who piled up riches but did nothing with them created resentment among the people and suspicion among allies. Gold locked away in vaults inspired envy, not loyalty. Machiavelli stressed that wealth had to be used strategically. It was a resource that only gained value when put into motion. Strategic use of money meant building alliances. A wise ruler invested in the loyalty of those around him. He gave rewards not as charity but as calculated moves, binding others to him. He funded projects that increased his reputation, making him appear generous and strong at the same time. He spread wealth in ways that created dependence. Others came to rely on him, which they could not easily turn against him. Money in this sense became the invisible chain that tied others to his rule. It also meant shaping influence. With money, rulers could sway opinions, fund propaganda, and control the narrative. In Machiavelli's time, this might mean paying artists to glorify a ruler, sponsoring public festivals to win the love of the people, or financing writers who praised his reign. Wealth could shape the image of a leader as much as it could build his army. People were drawn to strength, and money gave you the power to project it. At the same time, strategic use of wealth included reputation management. Machiavelli understood that leaders lived and died by their reputation. Money allowed a ruler to appear generous when needed, merciful when useful, and strong when required. A calculated gift to the right ally could secure trust. A lavish celebration at the right time could calm unrest. By distributing wealth wisely, a ruler not only secured obedience, but also built the illusion of magnanimity. Even if his true motives were cold and calculated, yet the line was delicate. Too much generosity drained resources and made a ruler weak. Too little generosity made him hated. Machiavelli advised balance. Spend enough to secure loyalty and influence, but never so that you impoverish yourself. Always keep enough in reserve to punish enemies, fund armies, and act decisively when fortune shifted. In this way, money became a balancing act, a constant calculation of risk and reward. Another dimension was the building of networks. Machiavelli observed that no ruler could stand alone. Power depended on webs of allies, informants, soldiers, and administrators. Money was the thread that held these waves together. With wealth, you could hire the best minds, the most skilled generals, the most loyal servants. You could create bonds that went beyond personal friendship and rested on financial interest. Networks built this way were more reliable than those built on affection, because money gave them structure and durability. Machiavelli also emphasized the timing of spending. A gift given too early was wasted. A reward granted too late bred resentment. Money had to be used with precision, striking at the right moment to maximize effect. It was not the amount of wealth spent, but the calculation behind it that mattered. The right payment at the right time could prevent rebellion, secure loyalty, or turn an enemy into a friend. This strategic timing turned wealth into a true instrument of control. Through all of this, the key was always the same. Money was not an end in itself. It was a means. To hoard it without purpose was folly. To spend it carelessly was ruin. But to use it with intent, to bind allies, to intimidate enemies, to shape purses, to act boldly, was the path to survival and power. Machiavelli stripped away the illusions surrounding wealth. He saw it not as comfort or luxury, but as the lifeblood of authority. Without it, fear and desire slipped away from your grasp. With it, you could bend both forces to your will. And in this view, money was more than metal or paper. It was trust, influence, reputation, security, and freedom all at once. It was the one resource that could be transformed into anything else a ruler needed. Armies, alliances, loyalty, reputation, all could be bought, strengthened, and maintained with wealth. That is why, for Machiavelli, money was not optional. It was the foundation, the tool, the weapon, the lifeline, and above all, the one thing a ruler could never afford to lose. Machiavelli was clear-eyed about the dangers of money. He knew that wealth, while essential for survival, carried within it the seeds of destruction. To acquire money at all costs was one thing. To be consumed by it was another. He observed how rulers who let their obsession with riches overtake their judgment ended up weaker, not stronger. Money was supposed to be a tool, but once it became an idol, it corrupted the very foundations of power. Greed for Machiavelli was not simply the desire to possess more. It was the inability to use wealth with discipline. A ruler blinded by greed drained his treasury with endless luxuries, rewarding reswarmed instead of strengthening his state. He spent fortunes building palaces, chasing pleasures, or rewarding favorites excessively. This did not make him secure. It made him vulnerable. His soldiers went unpaid. His allies felt neglected. His subjects saw his extravagance and grew resentful. Soon, his wealth worked against him, becoming the very cause of his downfall. But even when wealth was handled carefully, danger still lurked. Others would always envy a rich ruler. Envy breeds betrayal. The more wealth one accumulates, the more it tempts rivals to conspire. Ambitious generals might believe they could take the treasury for themselves. Allies might begin plotting, thinking that the wealth of their partner should belong to them. Even the people, when suffering under hardship, might rise against a ruler who seemed to swim in gold while they drowned in poverty. Machiavelli understood this dynamic well. Riches gave security, yes, but they also painted a target on your back. The betrayal Machiavelli himself experienced was tied to money and power. After serving Florence loyally, he was cast aside when the Medici family returned to power. He was accused of conspiring, imprisoned, and tortured. Why? Because those with more resources and influence saw him as a threat. His loyalty did not save him. His service meant nothing. In the end, the calculus of wealth and envy determined his fate. It was a lesson that stayed with him for the rest of his life. This is why he warned rulers that misuse of wealth leads to ruin. Hoard it blindly, and you become a miser who inspires hatred. Spend it foolishly, and you become a weakling who cannot defend himself. Flaunt it openly, and you invite envy and rebellion. The art of ruling required balance, using wealth as a weapon, while never letting it control you. That balance brought him to one of his most famous observations: morality versus pragmatism. Machiavelli did not write about how rulers ought to behave in a perfect world. He wrote about how rulers must behave if they wanted to survive in a brutal, competitive one. To him, strict moral purity was dangerous. A ruler who tried to be too good, too generous, or too honest would be crushed by rivals who were not bound by the same limits. Yet he did not preach cruelty for cruelty's sake either. Instead, he advised rulers to appear virtuous, even if behind the mask they acted with ruthlessness. Appearances mattered. People, he said, judge more with their eyes than with their reason. They do not look deeply into motives. They believe what they see. A ruler who looked generous, merciful, devout, could win affection, even if his actions were calculated and self-serving. Money was essential in this theater. With wealth, a ruler could fund displays of generosity, sponsor public works, or donate to religious causes, all to craft an image of virtue. Behind the curtain, however, he could act with pragmatism, buying loyalty, suppressing enemies, and ensuring his own security. This balance between morality and pragmatism was delicate. Too much cruelty, and the ruler became hated, sparking rebellion. Too much generosity, and the treasury collapsed, leaving him defenseless. The wise prince, Machiavelli argued, was one who knew how to walk the line. He used money to project an image of virtue, but never let appearances distract him from the harsh realities of power. He understood when to be feared and when to be loved, but he never confused appearances with substance. The lessons Machiavelli drew from Renaissance Florence echo with force in the modern world. In business, politics, and even personal life, money still serves the same function. It is leverage. It is protection. It is influence. A company with deep resources can weather storms, outlast competitors, and invest in bold innovations. A politician with wealth can fund campaigns, shape narratives, and buy the loyalty of allies. An individual with financial independence can act with freedom, making choices without fear of dependence. The principles have not changed, only the state. But just as in Machiavelli's time, the pitfalls remain. Obsession with money corrupts businesses, turning them from innovators into parasites. Envy drives competitors to destroy rather than cooperate. Leaders who misuse wealth, either by hoarding it selfishly or spending it recklessly, fall victim to the same traps that consumed Renaissance princes. The technology may be new, but the psychology of money and power is eternal. Cautionary examples are everywhere, both in history and in our own time. Consider rulers who amassed vast wealth, yet lost everything. The Roman Emperor Nero spent recklessly on spectacles and luxuries, while neglecting the empire's defenses. His people grew to hate him, and his enemies closed in. His wealth, instead of saving him, became a symbol of his corruption and weakness. He ended his life abandoned and despised. Closer to Machiavelli's era, there was the case of Charles the Bold, Duke of Burgundy. He inherited immense wealth and used it to fund wars in pursuit of glory. But his obsession with expansion drained his resources and exposed him to enemies who were waiting for him to stumble. His wealth gave him power at first, but when it was misused, it led directly to his ruin on the battlefield. On the other side, there are rulers who used wealth strategically and rose because of it. Lorenzo de' Medici, known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, controlled Florence, not just with soldiers, but with money. He invested in art, culture, and the loyalty of influential families. His wealth allowed him to appear generous and noble, while securing alliances that protected his power. He balanced spending and saving carefully, using his fortune not for indulgence alone, but as a tool to strengthen his position. His dynasty endured for generations, showing the power of wealth when wielded wisely. Even outside of politics, Machiavelli's lessons apply. Businesses that flaunt wealth, but fail to reinvest, collapse when crises strike. Companies that hoard wealth without using it to innovate lose relevance and die. Leaders who buy loyalty with reckless spending go bankrupt, while those who distribute wealth strategically build empires that last. The patterns Machiavelli observed in princes are the same patterns we see in corporations and leaders today. And envy, betrayal, and challenge remain constants. A wealthy businessman attracts lawsuits, rivals, and political scrutiny. A rich politician draws suspicion and resentment. Even in personal life, wealth can breed jealousy among friends, family, or colleagues. Machiavelli would say, expect it, Do not be surprised when envy follows success. Prepare for it. Guard against it. Use wealth wisely, but never assume it will protect you completely. For Machiavelli, the danger was never money itself, but the way it was managed. Wealth was like fire. In the right hands, it provided warmth, security, and power. In the wrong hands, it consumed everything, leaving ashes behind. The challenge for any ruler, any leader, any individual was learning to control the flames without letting them spread beyond control. The warnings remain as sharp as they were 5 centuries ago. Obsession corrupts. Envy surrounds the wealthy. Misuse leads to ruin. Appearances of virtue must be managed, even if behind them lies cold pragmatism. And in every age, whether in Florence or in our modern world, wealth remains the most dangerous tool of all. It can elevate, but it can just as easily destroy. So, we arrive at the heart of Machiavelli's lesson. Money alone cannot make you wise, cannot make you just, cannot even guarantee victory. But without it, everything else collapses. In his hose, and in ours, wealth is not a luxury. It is the backbone of power. It fuels loyalty, protects independence, and allows bold action. To ignore it is to step into battle unarmed. Remember this: if you dismiss wealth, you dismiss influence. If you turn away from money, you turn away from power itself. Machiavelli's warning is simple. Those who fail to secure wealth will bow to those who have it. If this insight opened your eyes, then show your support. Like this video and subscribe to our channel, Psych Algorithm, where we uncover the timeless laws of power and strategy that shape our world.